Write. Read. Write.
Yeah.
Because you can read a lot, that does make you a writer. Writing, art ಎಲ್ಲ ಆಮೇಲೆ ಮಾಡ್ಕೋಬಹುದು ಬೇಕಾರೆ ಫಸ್ಟ್ ಓದ್ಬಿಡಿ ಏನಾರು ಒಂದ್ಸರಿಗೆ.
Once you enter that spiritual
Yeah.
arena,
Yeah.
then you get engrossed with
Yeah. Anyway, Bangalore was first love and continues to be my favorite place in the world.
What motivated you to start writing?
And 11th standard was my first published thing, and that thrill of seeing my name in print was a different experience. I grew up thinking only British children have the best childhoods, and because my childhood looked nothing like that,
Yeah.
Katha loved to bits, passionate about them. Even now I can remember every panel of so many of the comics, but all the storytelling techniques and skills I got from Enid Blyton for sure. And she said you should write the Bhagavad Gita for children. In fact, when we came back from the US in 2004, the first book I got commissioned to write was a guidebook to Bangalore.
Could have asked me to write about Bengaluru. My thoughts would be just how Bengaluru originated.
Core philosophy of all Indian philosophy, ancient Indian philosophy, is question.
In case you had to collaborate with any of the mythological characters, who would it be?
I think Krishna. He's very smart, very pragmatic, practical.
ಎಲ್ರಿಗೂ ನಮಸ್ಕಾರ. ನಾನು ಸ್ವಾತಿ. ಇವತ್ತು ನಾವಿದ್ದೀವಿ ಮುಖಾಮುಖಿ ಕಾರ್ಯಕ್ರಮದಲ್ಲಿ. ನಮ್ಮ ಜೊತೆ ಇರುವಂತಹ ಲೇಖಕರು ಮಕ್ಕಳ ಸಾಹಿತ್ಯದಲ್ಲಿ ತುಂಬ ಹೆಸರು ಮಾಡಿರುವಂಥವ್ರು. ರೂಪಾ ಪೈ ಅನ್ನೋ ಹೆಸರು ನೀವು ಖಂಡಿತ ಕೇಳಿರ್ಬೋದು. ಇದಲ್ಲದೆ ಬೆಂಗಳೂರಿನ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಸುಮಾರು ಪರಿಶೀಲನೆ ಮಾಡಿ ಬಿಕಮಿಂಗ್ ಬೆಂಗಳೂರು ಅನ್ನೋ ಪುಸ್ತಕವನ್ನು ತಂದಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ಇದು ಅಂಕಣ ಬರಹಗಳ ಸಂಕಲನ. ತುಂಬ ಚೆನ್ನಾಗಿ ಬಂದಿದೆ ಪುಸ್ತಕ. ಸೊ ಇವತ್ತು ಅವ್ರ ಜೊತೆ ಮಾತಾಡೋಣ. ಮೇಡಮ್, ಕಾರ್ಯಕ್ರಮಕ್ಕೆ ಸ್ವಾಗತ.
ನಮಸ್ಕಾರ. ಥ್ಯಾಂಕ್ ಯು.
ಮ್ಯಾಮ್, ಹೌ ಡಿಡ್ ಆಸ್ ಪರ್ ವಾಟ್ ಐ ಹ್ಯಾವ್ ರೆಡ್, ನಾನು ನೋಡಿರೋ ಪ್ರಕಾರ ಯು ಸ್ಟಾರ್ಟೆಡ್ ರೈಟಿಂಗ್ ವೆನ್ ಯು ವೇರ್ ಇನ್ ಯೋರ್ 11th ಸ್ಟ್ಯಾಂಡರ್ಡ್. ದಟ್ ವಾಸ್ ದ ಫಸ್ಟ್ ಟೈಮ್ ಯು ರೋಟ್. ಸೊ ಹೌ ಹ್ಯಾಸ್ ದಟ್ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪೀರಿಯನ್ಸ್? ವಾಟ್ ಮೋಟಿವೇಟೆಡ್ ಟು ಯು ಟು ಸ್ಟಾರ್ಟ್ ರೈಟಿಂಗ್?
I have no idea, actually. It was, I think I'm just one of those lucky people who knew always what I wanted to do in life. And 11th standard was my first published thing. Until then, I used to write all the time. So it was just a way I expressed myself. It was always, if I went on a vacation with my parents, if I went for a school program where something impacted me, I would come back and write about it. And journeys were always with collecting ticket stubs and brochures and sticking it. And so that was just something that I always did. When I was in 11th standard, it came out in Deccan Herald. There's this middle anta, madhya page al barutte, op-ed page alli. They used to have a small slice of life kind of column. Adan bardu kalsta idde. Finally, they accepted one when I was in 11th, and that thrill of seeing my name in print, I think both those things came together. First of all, that I like to write, and that was the way I expressed myself, and to see my name in print was a different experience. I decided that was going to be my life. And yeah.
Then what exactly made you choose engineering?
I did not choose engineering. This is my parents. Okay. When was that? It was in the late 80s. Bangalore nalli either you have to become an engineer or a doctor. Ashte averate choices iddidu. Especially if you do well in school, then of course you have to do that. Nan engineering beda, nan arts martini, English literature martini, BA and all. They said, my parents said, you know what, you can do that afterwards. Adeno ad yavaglu adond kate alla. They always say that ರೈಟಿಂಗ್ ಆರ್ಟ್ ಎಲ್ಲ ಆಮೇಲೆ ಮಾಡ್ಕೋಬಹುದು ಬೇಕಾರೆ ಫಸ್ಟ್ ಓದ್ಬಿಡಿ ಏನಾರು ಒಂದ್ಸರಿಗೆ. So anyway, and she gave me this very compelling argument, my mother, that I would like my daughters to be financially independent. And that is true. As a writer, you can make not much money at all. So I said, okay,
but
fine.
I think during those times it was a very forward ಥಾಟ್ ಒಂಥರ, ತುಂಬಾ ಫಾರ್ವರ್ಡ್ ಥಿಂಕಿಂಗ್ ಅನ್ನಿಸ್ಬೋದು. ಯಾಕಂದ್ರೆ 80s ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಮಗಳು ತುಂಬಾ ಫಿನಾನ್ಷಿಯಲಿ ಇಂಡಿಪೆಂಡೆಂಟ್ ಆಗಿರ್ಬೇಕು ಅನ್ನೋ
my mother was very progressive always, and she always drove her own car, and so she would have been, she wanted to do IAS, but then I think she got married at 20 and then became a mom at 21. I thought that dream went. But she wanted her daughters at least, and she was now if I think back, I use words like pushy. She was very pushy, and I don't. Actually, she was very ambitious for her daughters, particularly. Adu idu achieve ಮಾಡಬೇಕು ಅಂತ. So she would do all the hard work, drive us to swimming class at 6 in the morning, skating class 7, and then may come back, pack our lunches, send us to school. A lot of work. So yeah, she was a very progressive person, and my dad was also very progressive. He had lived in Germany and all before, so. When he came back, one of the first things he did was to teach his wife to drive. Okay. She had never thought about it, but atara. So very progressive parents, and yeah, we all benefited from that. Yeah.
And speaking about your writing the books journey, the children literature, how did it begin?
Yeah, so I wasn't sure I wanted to be a children's writer always. I just wanted to be a writer. But, when we were growing up, there was not much children's literature to be had. Andre nam parents ashton duddu irta irilla to get us books to read and all. And if at all they took us to a bookstore, my mother was a big reader of Kannada novels. So she understood that reading was important. And my school was the one I went to, which is called Stella Maris in Malleshwaram, Sadashinagar. So they also used to give us only books as prizes for everything. So very nice. I was surrounded by books all the time. So, but because there was and if our parents bought us books, it would be something little more information based, encyclopedias, adu idu, and city central library hogadu, odadu, research ಮಾಡೋದು ಬರೋದು ಆ ತರ ಇರ್ತಾ ಇತ್ತು. But so there was only circulating libraries where you would get books. Every neighborhood in Bangalore had a circulating library, or one or more. So we were all members of some library. Alli nodidre only Enid Blyton books. Shelves upon shelves. And she was an amazing writer, very entertaining, wonderful books. And she wrote over 700 books in her lifetime. So you never ran out of Enid Blyton books to read. So adu odi, loved that. The only problem with reading, and she really taught me, I think, now if I think back, how to write. Okay. As how to write for children. So a lot of inspiration from her. But the only problem was, if you read so much Enid Blyton, I grew up thinking only British children have the best childhoods. And because my childhood looked nothing like that, alli aa books gallalli yaru adults irtane irlilla. Only children going by themselves on adventures and catching criminals. Famous Five and Secret 7. They used to go and do their own investigation, and there was never any adults. And my life in Bangalore was very different. It was just surrounded by adults all the time. Otherwise, there were the boarding school books. They would all be at boarding school and having so much fun. Manning boarding school illa. Maneli, so many adults, not only just your parents, but uncles and aunts and neighbors and grandparents, everybody asking, where are you going, when you're coming back? Such a curated life. So I said, my childhood is not fun at all. Anta ankondu belediddu. Aamele, when I grew up, when I was about 12 or 13, I came across this fabulous children's magazine, which is to come out from the House of India today. It was called Target. And for the first time, I read stories written by Indian authors about Indian children like myself. And all those children seemed to be having a lot of fun. So I said, oh, so my life is fun. Anta avaga taleg bandiddu. Until then, it was like, oh, everybody else is having a good time and my life is not good. I mean, not such a deep feeling like that, but you just felt that is the best life. But because there were no Indian children's books at all in English at that time. Okay. So there was nothing for me to read where I was reflected or I was represented. There was no such book. Loved to bits, passionate about them. Even now I can remember every panel of so many of the comics. But they also talked about Apsaras and Devas and us, not like children like me. So there was no way to find myself reflected in a book. And then when I came across this Target magazine and read the stories written by really very good Indian children's writers, Avaga, I was like, wow, my God, the power of storytelling. Suddenly my life looks so wonderful to me. Just because somebody told me a story about me. And I think that's when I decided that not only, even to be a children's writer was I didn't even think of it in those words. That's not how I articulated it to myself. I said, I want to write for this magazine. Okay. It was that narrow. I want to grow up and write for Target. Before that, my biggest ambition had been, I want to be a sales girl at Gangaram's. Because I can sit and read the books all day, and I felt like once in a while somebody will come and ask you questions. Otherwise, you can be sitting behind the shelf and reading. Yeah, so that's when I decided I wanted to be a writer for children, and also that I did not want to write derivative books like Western books. I had to create a new paradigm and write Indian stories which are meant only for Indian children, so that they grow up and another generation doesn't grow up feeling somewhere else is better anta, namde great anta. So that kind of, but all the storytelling techniques and skills I got from Enid Blyton for sure. But the content, the kind of stories I wanted to tell, I got from India.
It was so the mix of both. The West.
Yeah.
What actually made you select this genre? Mostly you write about the Gita, the Upanishads.
Yeah.
So how did that come?
I don't actually mostly write about those.
Yeah. I mean,
but those have become the most popular of my books.
Right.
Yeah, that is true.
Those
are three of them: the Gita and Gita for children, Vedas, Upanishads for children, and more recently the Yoga Sutras for children. So again, if you had asked me, Gita for children came out actually 10 years ago, 2015. But even in early 2014, if you had told me next year you'll be writing Bhagavad Gita for children, I would have laughed really and said, what do you mean? Of course not. I don't write such boring books. I'm not interested in all that. I'm a cool author. Because my first series was called Tara Knots.
Yeah.
That turned 15 last year actually. And that was a proper Enid Blyton type, but Indian, or not even Indian. It's set in a parallel universe. But if you read it as an adult, you'll recognize India in every page. So other than the fantasy adventure series, that was the first one in English ever for children. So that I didn't know that when I was writing it afterwards. After I'd finished the series, they said, oh, this is the first complete series in English for children of fantasy. Sorry. But so I thought I wanted to be that kind of writer, write the cool books and all that. And then this was entirely my editor's thing. Her name is Vatsala Kaul Banerjee. She was working in Target when I was reading Target.
Okay.
And then when I joined Target, which I fulfilled that dream, I went to Delhi and joined Target. She was my first editor there. And she continues to be my editor. So 32 years I've worked with her now. So 10 years ago, she said, hey, I have the best idea for you. And that time I didn't have any ideas, and I get very antsy if I'm not writing something. So she said, I have a great idea. You write that book. I said, okay, what do you want me to write? And she said, you should write the Bhagavad Gita for children.
Okay.
And I said, what? Are you actually kidding me? Like, I am not writing Bhagavad Gita. Also, there was a bit of fear, no? In India, you were like, Bhagavad Gita and all, you better not, if you're not an expert in it, better not touch it. And I didn't know very much about it. What everybody knows, I know. That's all. But I had never read the whole thing. So there was no such aura around it at all. So it was very intimidating for me, like, to take a text as beloved to people as that, as relevant as it's a living, breathing text in India. It's not, like in the West, in the American authors like Rick Riordan, Percy Jackson books. They can write whatever they want about Greek mythology and Greek gods, and because nobody worships those gods anymore. But here it's very alive. So you have to be careful.
Otherwise, parents going to...
Parents and general people on the street also get upset and all that. So I was like, no, I don't want to do it. But for some reason, again, Swathi, I have no idea why she kept at me. And that's why I feel we both were guided by something else. She was like, no, I think you should read it. I think you should drop your fears. How do you have all these stereotypical notions of what the Gita is? You're saying it's not for children. Do you know? Have you read it? And then I had to say sheepishly, no, I have not fully read it. So she said, how can you say no without at least reading it? So I said, yeah, that's fair. I should at least do that. And then I can say with as much conviction that it's not for children. I will prove to you. And I started reading it. Again, I don't know much Sanskrit, nothing. So I had to rely on commentaries in English, both by Indians and by Westerners. And then by the second chapter, I was just fully sold on the Gita. I was like, my God, this is amazing. And I wish I had read it growing up and all the rest of it. And that's how it came to be. But even after I wrote it, I was, a bit psyched about how will it be received and all that. Of course, then we sent it to some experts. We sent it to Professor Vivek Debaroy, so he read it and said, oh, it's delightful and it must be published. So, Solpa Samadhana, I thought, okay, maybe it's not so bad. But even then, when it was published, really all fingers were crossed that it won't offend anyone or something, because that was never, my idea was never to offend. So I hope nobody takes offense. Antu into it became such a huge success. Now it's sold over 150,000 copies.
And it also received the crossword awards.
I always my books receive more the popular choice awards more than the jury awards. But yeah.
So it was.
Once Gita Bhagavad, you are open to, your mind opens to a different world, a different universe. Until then, you don't have to. You may not have engaged with that universe, but then it's all exciting. It's like Aladdin's cave, Oh, why don't you explore the Vedas? Why don't you explore? So yeah.
So once you enter that spiritual arena, then you get engrossed with it.
Yeah. Then it's all so fascinating. You want to explore more. You want to discover.
Somewhere it connects to your life, right?
Absolutely, and to your Indianness. I think there is a certain resonance because in India, scripture is not something that is reserved for the temples or whatever. It is everywhere on the streets, in life, in our idioms of language, how we refer to things, or like Mahakali tara banbutlu. So all the goddesses and gods are evoked every day in regular conversation. So, as an Indian, when you read these books, it resonates very deeply. The worldview, which you don't know where you have imbibed this worldview, but it's there. And then when you read it, you say, "Oh, 2,500 years ago, people were talking like this."
Right. So, speaking about the truth that about 500 years ago, we were always told speak positive because Astu Devatas will be there around you. Astu Devate irtare. Astu anta irtare. Positive agi maatadu anta. But recently this topic is in trend suddenly, that manifestation, law of attraction.
I'm telling you, everybody has borrowed from us only.
So what do you have to tell about this?
Yeah, this is true. I always say, especially when I did the most recent one, Yoga Sutra, that was, I didn't know anything about the Yoga Sutras. But I heard a talk about the Yoga Sutras during COVID by this Professor Vinaya Chandra Banavati. He's an expert on the Yoga Sutras. I just heard on Zoom. No, we all had no work with listening to every Zoom thing. And I was so mind blown by the simplicity and the very logical way it approaches mind control, how to control your mind. And when I started researching, what was your question? You were asking, when I started researching, that's when I realized that Yoga Sutra, the text is the essence of mindfulness. And now mindfulness has been co-opted by some American, whole books and books about mindfulness.
And they are the coolest topics these days.
I know. And we have figured it all out very long ago. So yeah, there is something very exciting about our old texts for sure. And without putting any religious flavor into it, just as a philosophy, because Hinduism is also more of, it's like a philosophy, it's not a religion, it's a way of life, and it tells you how you can discover the divine potential you have. It's not about some god outside, it's about your own divine potential, how to discover it. So we had plumbed the depths of the human psyche. Patanjali or whoever it was who composed the Yoga Sutras, it had been done. All human psychology has been figured out. But they've gone away, and so now it gives the opportunity for others to, oh my God, did you know that? But yes, we knew, but we ourselves don't know that we knew until we
are the actual originators of this, but it's coming from somewhere else.
Yeah, because we don't read our own texts, so, and they're not accessible also because they're in a language that is no longer so often used. So I think we should.
So maybe somewhere the authors like you are actually giving it to the children, so that at least the future generations
some of it, just a flavor of it.
Of course.
Yeah, most
it's very vast, right?
Yeah, most of my books are just to excite you, to intrigue you about the text, so that you lose the fear of it. And then you go and do further exploration on your own. I can't be comprehensive or anything or exhaustive, but just give you a flavor.
Right. And moving ahead, speaking about becoming Bengaluru, one of the very celebrated book of yours,
it's quite new,
Becoming Bangalore. So this is a book, it's a collection of your writings for Hindustan Times. So how you told you have written in that book itself in the beginning that it brought you some discipline where you had to sit and write every fortnightly for the book, for the column. I went through the book, and it needs a lot of research. I don't think these research things were available, and during maybe about 10 or 12 years ago, even the internet was not that accessible. So it needed a proper research. So how did that journey go through?
Yeah, so history I've always enjoyed, even though it's not very nicely taught in schools, unfortunately. It becomes mostly about some battles and dates and stuff. Of course, CBSE is doing a better job now of history textbooks for sure. But history has always been of interest to me. So when we went to live abroad, my husband and I, we were away for some years. And first we went to the UK. And really the only thing we could afford as a young and impoverished couple there was walks, history walks. Those were the cheap things that we could do to understand about the city we were living in, London and all. London is steeped in history, of course. And they very good at documenting and telling the stories and all. Unlike us, they are very good at all that. So when we used to go on the walks, I used to enjoy those walks so much. Then we went to live in the US for a while. Again, there also a lot of history, and even though they are only 250 years old as a country, but they know how to sell themselves very well. And then we came back, my husband and I, and we were like, we should do something here also. So we thought we'll do something about Hampi, because Hampi was, even today there's not much. If you go there, there's no interpretation center, etc. So we were like, oh, we actually have an not ancient, but medieval capital, which was one of the biggest cities, richest cities of the world at that time. We should do some guiding and all about that and that. But our kids were small, Hampi was far away. How to go and come, it was difficult. So then my husband said, he thought to himself that he wanted to explore Bangalore's history and probably do something here. And so properly, mythic society, go and sit down, take out the Mysore Gazetteer, start reading, talk to people who have done books, collect all the books on Bangalore that have been published. So in that painstaking way, when we went through it, he realized that there was so much history, even though in Bangalore somehow we think of ourselves as a very young city, very forward looking, because we don't have palaces, we don't have forts, we don't have anything. Fort and the only delegate is there in a city market, but otherwise we don't know. It's at least Mysore is something historical, but Bangalore is very modern. And cool. And but we discovered that there was so much beautiful history in Bangalore. So 20 years ago, we started something called Bangalore Walks, where we used to take people on walks around, heritage walks around Bangalore. So Bangalore is such a lovely city that anything new, any idea, people will come and support you. So all the press wrote about us, this, that, because it was a unique idea at that time. Now I'm so glad to see there are dozens and dozens of organizations doing walks around Bangalore, and niche walk beko ella ide, food walk ide, coffee walk ide, flowers and Lal Bagh and Kabul Park and all kinds of walks are there now. But when we started, we were the only ones. So that's how that interest in Bangalore's history began. But both of us are Bangalorean, my husband and I. So, and I call myself a third generation Bangalorean. So anyway, Bangalore was first love and continues to be my favorite place in the world. So, and when you come back from having lived outside, your appreciation goes up so much more. You appreciate so many things that you didn't before. And especially because you're seeing it through the eyes of someone who has seen the rest of the world and how they market it and how they tell their stories and say, we have so much, we are not even talking about it. So since then, the engagement with Bangalore history has been there. So I've written, in fact, when we came back from the US in 2004, the first book I got commissioned to write was a guidebook to Bangalore called Ticket Bengaluru. Avaga. Now it's gone out of print and everything. But it really gave me an appreciation of my city, which is different from just being born here. That kind of love is different. But, when you say, this is how we reached here, these are the sacrifices people made, these are the great decisions, great administrators that we have had. So that has always been there. So for 20 years, I've been talking about Bangalore, gathering information, this, that. The columns started only 4 years ago. And so column writing is another interesting thing because you know a lot of stuff, but when you have to put it down in writing, you have to be very accurate, and you can't simply, when you perhaps talk about Bangalore, you can say, you look it up when you go home, maybe it's this, but when you write, it has to be. So that led to a whole different level of research, and only about one subject per fortnight, which has been very, very fulfilling. And in 2022, I wrote another book on, that was my second book on Bangalore after becoming Bangalore. It was called Kaban Park. Kaban Park, the Green Heart of Bangalore. That came out in 22, and that was just a history of Kaban Park. So that's how this is becoming Bangalore.
So when it comes to choosing the topics from Chow Chow Bath, the Red City, all of this.
Yeah.
So how did that happen? Like, what made you actually choose those particular topics?
I have no idea, Swathi. It's very exciting. Every Monday I'm sitting. What shall I write about today? So something, now I've started how maybe after 1 year of writing just stuff, randomly about whatever I already knew with extra information. I started linking the piece with something that was going on in the city. Today something is going on, how is it connected to something that happened before? So that was a very nice way of doing it. So that's become my thing now. So I
maybe if somebody would have asked me to write about Bengaluru, my thoughts would be just how Bengaluru originated and sorts. I wouldn't have thought about how Chow Chow Bath got its name or something like that.
So that I do like research. I love research, and I used to quiz when I was in school and college. So when you quiz, you're always trying to find connections, and so that continues even now. I think all kinds of information is very exciting, and my joy is in connecting stuff up. Many things exist in isolation, but if you look at them in isolation, they're just there. But when you connect it up, then you see the whole picture.
So coming to some fun part, you have read a lot of mythology, the researches you have done. In case you had to collaborate with any of the mythological characters, who would it be?
To write or to do
anything?
To write or
maybe,
I think Krishna. He's very smart, very pragmatic, practical. So I like that kind of person. He's also very wise, but more important, he's very sharp, and the way he makes Arjuna come around to his point, whatever he wants it to be done, he'll make everybody convinced somehow, and he'll make them believe that they came to it by themselves. That's the best kind of mentor. I just put all these ideas in your brain, but I'm not taking responsibility for your actions. And he's a very pragmatic person. I think he shows us how to live in the world. We can't be like Rama. That's very idealistic. It's great to aspire to, but the world is different. So I prefer Krishna for that. And he's one of the few gods that is portrayed as a sakha. Friend, as an equal, not as somebody bigger or lower or anything. And he doesn't have any chip on his shoulder. He's like just happy to be your friend and advise and guide. So he was also Draupadi's buddy. So, I envy her. I wish he could have been my buddy.
So, speaking about all this mythology part aside, how fun was it to get these books on mythology? Like, of course, you told me the tough part. You had to be very careful. It doesn't offend anyone. But what was the fun part of this?
The fun part was the discovery that we have such amazing texts that personally I had not explored before. So that was very exciting. I loved how it fitted into the children's. The thing is, even with my Bangalore walks, I take children's groups out, school groups, etc., to show them the history of Bangalore. So I'm very happy to talk to children, and I have been told that I'm in tune with how they think, because when I explain things, they seem to understand, and I'm able to explain at their level. So the fun part was discovering, like that the Upanishads, for instance. They always tell the greatest philosophy through stories. That's what we do as children's writers as well. So I felt a kinship with that. See how nicely they explain it, because they always tell you through a story. Whether even if you look at Panchatantra and all that, it's always through storytelling. Great philosophical truths are conveyed. Without, not in a preachy kind of manner that this is how it is and you better listen. That was exciting and fun. The other part was like with Krishna and Arjuna, that dynamic, I loved it, that they were just best friends who just had each other's backs kind of thing. That's also, for me, that was the entry point actually, when I realized that they were, somehow I had missed this whole thing. Even though we're great, and I love Mahabharata, I know a lot of the stories, etc. But I had somehow it had not sat in my head that Krishna and Arjuna are friends, best friends. They had always seemed to be some hierarchy between them.
Okay.
And then I discovered, no, they were best friends. And then I said, so basically the Bhagavad Gita is a conversation between two best friends.
Yeah.
Okay, I can write this for children. So I found a lot of ways in which truths were conveyed was in the same way that I, as a children's writer or a children's guide, tour guide, this is how I also explain things through storytelling. So there was a resonance there. That was a lot of fun to discover. And what else? And for me, that core philosophy of all Indian philosophy, ancient Indian philosophy, is question, question, question. Question received wisdom, don't believe. It's not about faith, it's about discovering the truth for yourself. And I think that's such a wonderful philosophy to keep in mind, whether it's in politics or, stuff is always happening around you in the world.
Yeah.
You either have, when you're younger, parental authority, when you grow up, governmental authority, and to be told when you're young that it's your right to question and to discover. I think it's a great wisdom to give to children. So that was the fun part, to discover, no, it's in my it's in my culture to question. So the argumentative Indian, yes, that's what we are, and there's no shame about it.
Yeah, very true. And speaking about the writing, there is the writing style of for children and the writing style for becoming Bangalore are like two sides of the coin.
Yeah.
So how did you inculcate those two writing styles?
Yeah, actually they're not very different, because I think even in Becoming Bangalore, what I'm trying to do is to make a story interesting. I'm still telling stories of Bangalore. Vocabulary may be slightly different. That's all. Vocabulary is different, but the approach is the same.
Approach is the same.
Yeah. That I want you to enjoy the story and learn something from it. So I think in fact, my training as a training or practice as a children's writer helps tremendously when I write for adults, because in the end, adults also want to be told a story. And they want to be told it well in a way that it stays in their mind, or they're entertained.
Right.
Of course they want to be informed also, but if they can be informed through entertaining, it's always far more compelling. In fact, even the Gita for children, it says for children, but I think more adults have read it than children. Because when I first announced it, my friends were like, oh, thank God, somebody's written a book which maybe I can understand about the Gita, because it's for children, so perhaps I will understand.
The moment the Gita is held in front of an adult, it has a lot of stotras and all of that. It's so, it feels very overwhelming to actually go through that. But somebody has written it in a simple way, it's much easier to understand the Gita or anything.
Anything. Science also, science books. Because I've written a book on economics also.
Yeah, so you want to learn economics.
So you want to learn about economics. So that is also done very well. I didn't expect that to do very well, because again, I have no background in economics at all. But what I've discovered is that if I want to know about some subject, that's why I choose so many different subjects. If I feel, I don't know anything about this subject, the best way for me to learn is to write a book for children on it. Because if you want to write for children in a simple way, you have to have fully understood it to be able to convey it.
So usually when we were kids, if we have to learn some scientific, these procedures and all, I used to just memorize, so you add this, so you do this. That's how I used to memorize the process. So as if I'm doing it myself, maybe that's where it catches or it sits in our mind.
True.
So speaking about children's literature, writing stories and all of this is one part, but reaching the audience is another. So how challenging or how was it?
That has been very challenging, not just for me, but for any children's writer. And especially children's writers in English, I think, because there are so many levels of comprehension with English in India. There's a certain urban kind of English, which even, I can't say that all children in Bangalore understand the same kind of English. There is a certain elite schools, they have a different kind of vocabulary and usage. And then there. So, first of all, as a children's writer, you have to choose your register correctly. To make it simple enough and accessible enough, not do too much allegiance to one kind of grouping,
Yeah.
to keep it quite universal, the
Yeah.
language. That is one challenge. And then, of course, the biggest challenge is how do you get your audience?
Right.
Children are not on social media. So you always have to address parents only. That is one thing. Then there is no space given in newspapers or whatever for reviewing children's books.
Right.
There
Nobody
isn't.
writes a review.
Nobody writes reviews. So again, social media, which has democratized everything. So there are certain Facebook groups that are only meant for children's books reviews and stuff. So hopefully somebody will notice your book and start talking about it there. And then there are, thankfully in Bangalore, we're very lucky that we have so many bookstores dedicated to children's books.
Yeah.
And especially English children's books. I'm not very sure about Kannada books. But English children's books, there is a lot. And then there are children's lit fests. The Bangalore Lit Fest has a section, and I think Book Brahma will also have a children's literature. They did have last year also, but I think they're going to enhance it this year. So there is some kind of space has been developed, but basically in the end we have to go to schools.
Right.
And schools gatekeep. They don't let anybody in. They're very, very.
The accessibility is very
hard. Yeah, and so it is a challenge. But I have to say, we have perhaps the largest community of Indian children's writers in Bangalore compared to any other city in India. And so through this, just strength in numbers, we are now able to make an impression. Slowly, still only touching the tip of the iceberg. But at least there is something.
Maybe if parents receive it in a better way.
Yeah. Also, see, children don't have agency. They don't have the money.
Yeah.
They don't have the ability to go to bookstores and look. So if it's only online, you only see what the algorithm shows you.
Right.
You cannot discover new books on your own.
In case something doesn't show Roopa Pai,
you never know. So, and it will only show what based on what you bought before.
Yeah.
It's assuming that you only, if you picked up one adventure book, it thinks you want to read only adventure books.
Right.
And there's no chance to discover other books. When we were younger, of course, you would go to a bookstore to buy, or you would go to a library, and then you could spend time looking and reading the blurbs and saying, okay, maybe this one, maybe that one. It exposes you. So there's a lot of challenges.
With the developing technology, I think it's making our lives a bit because even parents don't tend to actually give their children more of books. Instead, they would give their children screen time. Buy a new phone instead of buying a new book.
Yeah, I mean, there is some awareness now that is not good for the children, especially after COVID and so much screen time. People are like, please stay away from the screen. But I don't know if parents are simply saying stay away from the screen. They're not providing alternatives.
Right.
They should be taking them to bookstores.
When we were young, there were so many options. We could go out to play. Or we could sit and read a book. And just like you told, we used to do those journaling where we used to stick the pictures of our favorite actors and all these things.
The benefits of boredom are tremendous.
Right.
We were bored a lot of the time, and therefore we used to invent things for ourselves to do, which is so great for creativity and innovation.
But these days, parents don't want their kids to get bored.
Yeah, it's almost like such a fear that they will get bored. That give them something so that they can keep scrolling.
Right.
It's the worst kind of brain damage.
With these 10-minute delivery apps coming in, just order something and give your child something to play. Done.
The instant gratification age is actually ruining the kids and us.
And us as well.
Definitely.
We just don't want them nagging behind us, so just give them something for now.
We also don't want to go buy groceries or feel the vegetables. Or going to a market used to be such a lovely feel and a lovely activity. Just going to a market, picking the freshest vegetables, deciding based on what vegetables are available, which are fresh, what shall we cook today. So there was a lot of 360-degree kind of thing.
Now we are sure that even if the vegetable is rotten, we can get a refund. So it's fine, whatever comes.
So much more waste and so much more. And my niece is a doctor. She's an orthopedic surgeon. And she says we get so many accidents now by these delivery guys because they are rushing to reach somewhere before because they don't want. And then they drive rashly, they break their legs. It's so sad. And why do we need anything in 10 minutes? I can't understand this. Yeah, as a policy, I have not ordered Swiggy to date. Yeah, I'm like, no, because I also happen to live in an area where all these stores are around me.
Yeah.
So please use your legs and go and get what you want. Yeah.
That's so good. So, to an aspiring young children's author, so what words would you want to say?
Yeah, if it's a child, I want to say, please, to the child and to the parents, don't be in a hurry to get it published or printed, what your children write. Let them write as an exercise to hone their craft. Instantly, they don't have to have a book. And, this is a new trend.
Yeah.
Everybody wants their children's writing to be published. And obviously, the mainstream publishers will not publish books by children, because you have to have grown through several experiences before you can look back and write something. But so they won't accept. So then any print shop will do it for you now. You just take it, and they will, for a little charge, they will make a cover for you, and the child feels. I have had children, 8 and all, come to me. I am also a published author. Okay, and it's not the child's fault. It's really the parents or people who. Yes, it's important to make the child feel encouraged, but the child will feel very encouraged even if you tell them it's a great job. You don't have to. And if it's not a great job, please don't say it's a great job.
You have to give them way to improve.
And criticism can be given very nicely. It doesn't have to be constructively. And children they're not thinking that you have made them feel that unless they get a good good comment, that they should feel inadequate.
Right.
But just say, yeah, write it lovely and keep writing. Don't take it that seriously. Children will write, and so what? So I want to say to children and any adult who wants to write, or basically to children, that first rule is, I have only 2 rules if you want to be a writer. One is read. Read all kinds of books. Read extensively. Don't say you're a reader because you read 7 books of Harry Potter. That is one kind of book. You have to read catholically. You have to read extensively. You have to read translations into English from other languages, other cultures. Again, reading only British or reading only American also makes you very myopic, or like blinkers on kind of understanding of the world. So read from socioeconomic groups who are different from yours. Read writers who write from religions other than yours, because everybody has a different perspective on the same country, on the same life. And basically, your job growing up, if you want to be a writer, is to collect as many perspectives as you can. So to make your understanding vast of the world, you can't have only one perspective. So otherwise we have one chance at life, right? Of course, we believe in reincarnation here in India, but who knows? So as long as you know that there is one life, the only way you can experience other lives is by reading, or by watching films or whatever, but by living other people's lives in your head. And the way to do that, to enter into other people's lives, is through a book. So collect perspectives. That's very important. And the second rule is write. Read, write. Because you can read a lot, that doesn't make you a writer. It's a different thing to write something. It's a craft, and practice is the only way. All the thoughts in your head, how do you express them in writing? If you're able to do that, I think eventually you can find your voice.
Speaking of that, right now I just discovered a website where you just give a sentence and the paragraph is made, and this website is specially for children's books. In fact, they make a book out of it and they sell it.
Wow.
And children are given a commission. How does this impact our future generation of writing?
Worse and worse. Yeah, I don't know. So
I mean, it's an Indian website. I just don't want to mention the name. But is AI spoiling it for us?
We don't know. I mean, it's everything, even when science, nuclear power, whatever, from the beginning, any new thing, that disruptive technology that comes, is always a double-edged sword. It has, it has good sides and bad sides. And if you can, the only secret is that if you remain the master and use it as a tool, then then it's very useful.
Yeah.
And it can be beneficial as well. But if you become its slave, then you lose your own agency, your own mental capacity, everything.
Right.
In fact, when I was reading the Yoga Sutras, I felt Patanjali had predicted this long back, that unless you have your own control of your mind, the world will take over.
Right.
And it need not be, AI is just another in a long series of things that have happened.
Yeah.
And yet the people who have learned to make the machine their slave have triumphed,
Benefited.
always have benefited. But we can see how that impact's already happening, right? We think that AI is coming now, but how many of us remember birthdays or phone numbers or anything anymore? We have already outsourced it to this phone. So more and more brain rot will set in. That's all. The less you use, the brain is also muscle. So the less you use it, you don't use it, you lose it. So now we have to start inventing brain games so that to
the
keep
brain activates.
when actually just living your life can be that.
Yeah.
But it's scary, but I don't know. I'm generally a person who sees the glass is half full. It's not a conscious thing. It's just how I am. And I believe that human innovation will triumph always. Of course, everybody says, no, but this is not like earlier machines. And this is a different thing. Yeah, sure. But I think humans have something that will...
Sometimes this causes fear, like how the Robo movie was made. The robot took over the world afterwards.
So that's always been a fear for a very long time. And if we as a species allow the machine to take over, then we deserve to be wiped out. It's okay. I mean, as if anything lasts permanently. So maybe our time is done. That's fine.
Yeah. So what's your final message for all your readers or potential readers in future?
Nothing really. I mean, enjoy your lives, have a positive outlook, and stay curious. I think I would say stay curious, because the world is endlessly fascinating for a curious person. Otherwise you could, and then learn to, so stay curious and stay positive, and really try to, if you're not a reader, it's fine, really. I feel like saying that's just one way to make sense of the world. For readers, reading is a way to make sense of the world and to become a better person yourself than you were yesterday. So I think the only competition that we should care about is a competition with ourselves to be a better person in this moment than you were in the previous moment. And if you're not a reader, if the books don't make you get into that space, that's fine. You can be a sports person, you can be a musician. All of it requires a certain kind of work ethic and focus and all that will allow you to discover the same things about yourself and the world. So the route you take is not important, and but make sure you are focused on making yourself stronger, because really you are Aham Brahmasmi, I am Brahman. I can construct the universe in my head, and when the universe seems too scary, you can also dismantle the universe and create a different universe. That is entirely in your power. Don't give the power to anything or anyone else to control your life or to control your happiness. It is entirely in your hands. Believe it.
That's a beautiful message, and thank you for coming to our show. It's an honor to have and speak to you.
Thank you, Swathi. It was a lovely interaction. I didn't feel I was speaking to somebody I didn't know. Felt like speaking to a friend. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Namaskar.